How to Process Anger, Part 2. In the first video, I talked about the importance of anger, and today I want to talk to you about the different ways that we can experience the feeling of anger and the expression of anger, and what we can do to improve the way that we express anger and to improve the decisions in our lives around that. Because many of our decisions come from a place of how we feel. And often we don't realize that until we slow down, self-reflect, do some therapy and understand, that's why I'm making that decision. So let's talk in terms of anger. With anger, there are 4 areas that I really look into. Now, this is not a replacement for therapy. It's a generalization around what I have seen. So everyone has an individual process around this, and it also depends on how you were treated growing up, how anger was expressed growing up, what it was like when you were expressing yourself and your anger. So it can vary from individual to individual. This is just a general kind of overlay of what it can look like. So let's start with the first one. We all know this one, the fight response. What happens with this is it can be on a scale. We can get this rush in our body, this adrenaline cortisol rush that either sends us into a frustration, anger, maybe blaming and name calling, or to the extreme of rage, which is a sign that you're out of your window of tolerance and you've lost control. So anger can be on that scale, and many of us can experience this flush of anger and saying things that maybe we didn't really mean, but we wanted to hurt the other person because the anger kind of just took control over us. In this stage, we can be controlling, we can be forceful, we can be hurtful. And when we're in this space, we haven't been taught what to do with our anger. Maybe in your home it was okay to speak like that. Maybe you watched a parent speak like that and you never really learned, what do I do with this anger? So what do you do when you're in that space? This is a time to work on your activation. So getting a therapist to help you through that, as well as understanding that underneath the anger, which is often a cover emotion, a primary emotion, underneath that is hurt, sadness, pain, suffering of some sort. So we need to get to the bottom of that first to understand, what is it that's making me angry? What do I need? And what's really important to me in this situation? Once you get that understanding, you can use that force, that energy, that anger has given you, because it's actually quite a great emotion to work with, to set boundaries, to succeed in your life. So often we can be angry with other people for the way they treated us. And I'm not saying that that's okay, the way that they've treated you. And it's super important to go through a stage of anger and working through that. But if we get stuck in that anger and that feeling of unfairness and that revenge that we want to give people, what tends to happen is we focus all of our energy on others, on society, on authority in a society, and we can't control them. So it feels like a fight we're constantly in. Our cortisol's up. We're stressing our body out when we're doing that. But if we direct that force, that energy towards something that helps us succeed in life, that is the best way to get back to people that you feel have wronged you. That is the best way for you to live your life moving forward, is to start to create calmness, success, power, like in a healthy way for yourself, in a way that gives you purpose and where you're stepping into your potential, your higher self. That is the best way you can use this energy. So boundaries and really stepping into your own success, your own direction, and kind of redirecting that focus rather towards the people outside of you, trying to force change there, towards what you're doing, how you can actually create change and influence others. So that's fight response. Now the next one, what you will find is it is the flight response. Now this response is often when we feel angry, but we may minimize it, we may dismiss it. We also may want to distract ourselves from it. So flight response is really common when we want to escape from the emotion. We want to escape the discomfort. So what we often do is we may feel a bit of anger, and then we decide to distract ourselves from that uncomfortable feeling with substances, with TV, with food, with pick whatever it is that you'd like to distract yourself with, people. And so we don't necessarily work on the anger, we suppress it. It doesn't go anywhere, it stays, that's where resentment comes from, because it builds up. So what we need to do in that situation is to sit with the anger, allow it to come up. Again, having a therapist to support you through this, super important, depending on your upbringing and how you've expressed anger before. It's really helpful to have someone to facilitate this for you. So the flight response is really common when we use substances to get away from emotions. And the first thing here is to slow down and feel it. So let's keep going down. The next stage is the shutdown kind of fawn response. So it's not complete collapse yet, that's next, but it's a response that we might do where we blame ourselves. We might often minimize ever having conflict. So we'll do what it takes to just not have conflict at all, and we're afraid of anger. This is where we don't want to make things worse. So we will be the type of person that says, I'm just not an angry person. That's something I mentioned in the first video too. So I'm not an angry person. I don't really identify with being angry. So I've completely repressed it. Not completely, but I've maybe suppressed and repressed it. So here it tells me that anger was punished most likely in your household growing up. If this is the case, then you are dealing with a fear. These are all fear responses, but an even deeper fear response towards anger and what you associate it with. So again, therapy supports you in this space. It allows you to feel anger and understand what the association is there. This is where we may feel terror, panic, out of control if we access the feeling of anger. This is why it's not as easy as just saying, just feel it, just feel anger. There's a process around this, especially if you've learnt that anger is unsafe. Now, the last one is the freeze collapse response. This is where we may completely dissociate. We may be in a situation that's just maybe even if it's like the person has got angry with us or frustrated with us, we may feel frustration but not even know that it's there, so we collapse. Now, this collapse is generally a protective, even deeper protective mechanism. It tells me that you've grown up possibly with violence, and there's an association with anger there. So if you dissociate and you find yourself just going numb, shutting down, your legs are getting heavy, you kind of just want to escape into yourself, like it's almost like you can't move but you don't want to be there, and you may find that people escalate because they think that you're not wanting to communicate, but you find yourself not being able to communicate. Like you can think about what you want to say but very difficult for you to communicate. This is a big indicator to me that yes, there was violence in your home, and the association with anger is terror, almost horror in some stages. So again, working with a therapist through accessing these emotional states in a safe way is super important. As you may have noticed, that we worked down the ladder to, and I call it a ladder. This is Deb Dana's work, really important work around how we can we can feel the fear response to different degrees on our nervous system. So at the top, it's more of a fight flight, and then as you keep going down the ladder, where it gets scarier and scarier and the fear of something is even more amplified, then we come to a more collapse freeze state where we can't move and our body is shutting down. So this is why it can be so difficult for people to access and process anger. There are really big consequences if we don't, especially if you find yourself in really all of them. Like if you think about the fight response, that high cortisol, the adrenaline rush, it's really stressful for our body. If we stay stuck being angry at the world, we will find that our body is working overtime in this stress, and we'll make decisions from that place which generally create more chaos. This includes the other states as well. We generally create disconnection, chaos, conflict when we don't really even want to. The other thing that happens too is the more fear we have around something, the more we either internalize it and it then gets directed towards ourselves, where we have health problems and we find ourselves with immune diseases and all sorts of things that happen because we are suppressing or repressing an emotion. And today's anger is the emotion that I'm speaking about. So if this is something that you experience, like, tell me which one you resonate with the most on the ladder that I spoke about. Is it the fight response? Is it the flight response? Is it the fawn response, where you do things for everyone else, people please, and find yourself not wanting to have conflict, so you'll say yes often? Is it the collapse freeze response, where you completely numb out and don't even know what to say? You know what to say, but you can't say it. You want to run, but you can't physically run. Let me know what it is, and if this is something that you're noticing in yourself and you would like support with, I've got my one-on-ones that I'm doing at the moment. Something that could be really beneficial is the 12-week intensive that I have, and then also I have my decision-making course, which can be really supportive to work through a lot of this stuff as well. The decision-making course is more around if you've been to therapy first and then coming into that course. So get started with me and let's look at how you experience anger.